The Anthony Davis trade market is reportedly picking up right now as Detroit, Atlanta, and Toronto, according to Shams, are all interested in trading for the talented big man. Deriq Queen dropped a historic night as well, and the Giannis to New York door isn't shut, but they won't have an exclusive negotiating window. We're going to talk about it all and more on today's NBA Central.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So Shams dropped this one early this morning and said that the Detroit Pistons, along with the Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors, are expected to be Anthony Davis trade shooters per ESPN and Shams, going so far as to say this. The Mavericks are open to exploring the trade markets for Davis, Daniel Gafford, and guards Klay Thompson and D'Angelo Russell. We'll talk about those other players, but I want to start off with Anthony Davis, right? When we look at all three of these teams that have been mentioned as interested for Anthony Davis, these are all teams that are trying to make their move, and all Eastern Conference teams at that. Now, I don't know if that's, this has probably been leaked out by people within the Dallas Mavericks or maybe another team. If they are focused on trading him out east, which, maybe that's where Anthony Davis wants to go, where there's an easier path to maybe make a finals. But the Detroit Pistons are a team that they're the number one team in the Eastern Conference. And this is a team that we heard earlier in the season that they could be willing to push some of their chips in, right, to make the move to be win now. Could be a team that's looking to take advantage of where they are in the East now to solidify that run by making a big acquisition and solidify their chances to come out of that Eastern Conference. If that ends up being the case, I'm not necessarily mad at that one at all. They sit right now with a firm 2.5 game lead over the New York Knicks for the Eastern Conference and 4 games over the third-seeded Boston Celtics, who are actually at third. Shout out to them. So the Pistons could be looking to create a little bit more of that separation to get that done. They have draft picks. They have expiring contracts. They have a number of things that could add to their pursuit of Anthony Davis, and this makes a lot of sense for them, to be 100% honest with you. I love that the Pistons are a team that are now looking at being and maintaining, being aggressive at trying to, make some moves, and especially with, Jaden Ivey, the injury history that he's had and stuff like that. You look at the expiring contracts that they have as well. This could be a year where they do want to make their move, right? And so we'll see what they have there. You got players. You look at next year, players like Tobias Harris is an expiring contract. He's unrestricted. Jaden Ivey's a restricted free agent. You could look to move him now. You got Javonte Green also, who's an expiring. And then, of course, other restricted, Jalen Duren, who's not going to be involved in these talks at all either, right? So, you have some expirings there that you could take a look at. You also have players that aren't necessarily, have the biggest contracts and don't have super long-term bad money either that you can look to move as well. And then they have the picks, right? They have the picks that they can move. They own all their first-round picks outright, so they can move a pick every other year if they decide to do so, right, with the Stepien rule. So the Detroit Pistons make a lot of sense there, right? Then you flip that and you look at you look at the Atlanta Hawks. We've heard that the Atlanta Hawks could be looking at moving Trae Young, having a front line of Anthony Davis and Kristaps Porzingis is interesting, right? Because it could create a dynamic there. But I would think that if they're going to make a move the size of Anthony Davis, is Trae Young involved in that trade? Is that the player that they're looking to move? Are they looking to do some other things? Like, we'll see there, right? I don't know. Clearly if the Mavericks are doing this, they're looking to kind of reconstruct their roster and maybe go younger. And then the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are a team that, have really kind of surprised some people. I didn't have the Toronto Raptors as being as good as what they are. They sit as the 4th team in the Eastern Conference right now at 15-10. They got some young players down there that are cooking for them also, but they could push their chips in and look to cash out and be more aggressive as well to make their move as, with the East being more open, right? I don't like using the phrase wide open. That's just something I don't think is as open as some people try to make it out to be. But then again, you have the Toronto Raptors as the 4th seed right now, right? They don't have necessarily the expiring contracts. They do have Ochai Agbaji as an expiring contract that's going into restricted free agency, and Garrett Temple. But they don't have a lot of expirings there, right? So you would have to be looking at maybe you're cashing in on Emmanuel quickly, or maybe an RJ Barrett type player with the wings that they have there. Maybe you're looking at that I don't know how much that entices the Dallas Mavericks. I don't think they're going to want to give up Colin Murray-Boyles as their young rookie. Maybe the Mavericks could look at, but the Raptors, much like the Detroit Pistons, own all their first-round picks outright, all their own first-round picks. And, the Atlanta Hawks have that additional, unprotected pick that they got in the Deriq Queen trade as well. So, there's a number of things that could happen there. So we'll see where this ends up going, how aggressive, these teams end up being in their pursuit of Anthony Davis. But it seems like that market for AD is starting to pick up, and we'll see. Now, it was mentioned as well in that same reporting that Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, D'Angelo Russell are also players that the Dallas Mavericks, could be interested in moving. And this is why, when Mark Cuban came out and said that they aren't looking to make any trades, it was always kind of questionable, right? This seemed like this was the route that always made sense for the Mavericks to go. When Nico Harrison made the trade with Luka, he was under the guise, which, was delusional, that this team could still be a championship caliber team with Anthony Davis there, and it just didn't work out. So now hearing that veterans, Daniel Gafford, Anthony Davis, D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, all could be available, we'll see there. The Mavericks could be very well looking at trading as many veteran pieces as they have to try to stack the decks as much as they can there. We know which teams are going to be interested in Anthony Davis per this report, but it wasn't really said on any teams that could be interested on those other players. But Daniel Gafford as a big man, we know that teams need big man. The Celtics could be looking for a big man, for example. Like that's a team that could be interested in that. A number of teams are. Gafford's just the type of center that can really play in any system, any scheme, whether you're more up-tempo or slow down in the half court or pick and roll. He can play that. D'Angelo Russell is an interesting case, right? Because, Russell is a head case, and there are times where he's going to be very frustrating, but he can't put up numbers, and maybe a team looks at him and feels like they have some structure, that they could be interested in that. Klay Thompson is the interesting one here, right? Because Klay isn't necessarily what the Klay Thompson of old. He's had moments, right? And, a team may be willing to trust those moments, but I don't see them getting a lot back for Trey, even if they're able to move him and just get off that salary, which may be enough for them if you can get expiring salary. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. This is, I think this is kind of some smart moves overall, right? He does want to, Klay Thompson reportedly does want to finish out the rest of his career and with a contending team. And, he's rebounded from that. And I don't think he looks like his old self, but he's gotten closer to that. He's owed $16.5 million this season and $17.5 million next season. Daniel Gafford signed an extension this offseason. So, there's that part of it, but it does make him eligible to be traded before the trade deadline. He has a $68.8 million through the 2028-29 season. And then D'Angelo Russell did sign a 2-year deal with the Dallas Mavericks via mid-level tax level mid-level exception. So the taxpayer mid-level exception. So that leaves him at $5.7 million this year, $5.9 million next year. So that's not a hard contract to trade. So we'll see what the Mavericks can get back for these veterans as the Mavericks look to kind of reconstitute and refocus their roster and choose a new, younger direction. With that said, another team that another player that's looking to be on the move, that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. This one also comes out from ESPN and Shams as well that says this, that over the summer, the Milwaukee Bucks gave the New York Knicks an exclusive negotiating window to talk a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. And Giannis had made it known that he preferred to play for the Knicks. Those talks ultimately broke down despite New York making offers for Antetokounmpo. So with that said, this year, if Antetokounmpo does make a trade request this year, the Knicks will not have an exclusive window to negotiate with that. That comes from Shams as well. But they did say this, the writing is on the wall for that the Bucks are going to trade Giannis. Now, does that happen this season? Does that happen in the offseason? We'll see, right? But the Milwaukee Bucks, for all intents and purposes, they tried to improve their roster. They just don't have much leeway or headway to continue to improve that roster at the rate to where it would make Giannis want to stay. And if they recognize that, cool. Then that means they're going to be all in on trading players like Giannis. Miles Turner could enter the trade market as well. And then this Milwaukee Bucks team is going to look to get back the most they can for Giannis because this is a franchise that has to draft their stars. They've never been a free agent destination, despite how good they've been at times. So for them to get a star, they're going to want to get the best player they can back, as well as draft assets so they can get the most bites at the apple to continue to improve their team and to go into that direction of being younger. And that all makes sense for where the Milwaukee Bucks are and with the Giannis Antetokounmpo. But, for all the talk that it was in the offseason, for Giannis then to end up staying, reaffirming his commitment to Milwaukee, and then this to turn into what it turned into, it's not because Milwaukee didn't try. And sometimes a player's run just runs out. And if Giannis wants to compete at the highest level, which he has made it known that he wants to do, he wants to compete for titles in there. He wants to be where he feels he has the best chance to win basketball games. And part of me, I commend him for that, because some players would just be fine taking the money and just dealing with whatever it is. Giannis is not going to be content in that. He wants to win basketball games. He wants to compete for winning titles where he can. And so now this movement, it all makes sense for where the Milwaukee Bucks are going, what Giannis wants for his career. And now they're going to try to have to figure out where it all shakes out in the middle of that at, and what their path is going forward. So we'll see what that means for this team going forward and for Giannis. Let me know down below. Do you think that Giannis still winds up on the Knicks, or do you think that another team, what other team do you think could get involved to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo? With that said, let's get into the last topic for today. And this one, the Pelicans, Deriq Queen. All right, Deriq Queen has absolutely dropped. Like when you talk about stat lines, right? I know the stat lines aren't the end all be all. It still came in a loss, right? So be clear there. But Deriq Queen dropped 33 points, 10 rebounds. He had 4 blocks as well, 14 points. He had 10 assists, a triple-double. Deriq Queen continues to be a bright spot for that Pelicans team that needs a bright spot, right? And we've heard now over the last week or so that the Pelicans are prepared to move forward building around Deriq Queen and Jeremiah Fears, that players like Saddiq Bey, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, of course, there's no trade marker reportedly for Zion, but they could even move him. And it just makes some sense when it comes down to that, this Pelicans team has this young player that they traded for. And, while they were, judged harshly, it was called the worst trade of the offseason, giving up an unprotected pick in a 2026 draft that is going to be deep. And I want to be clear, there's a world in which Deriq Queen is still a very good player, a damn good player, and that the Pelicans still lost that trade depending on where that pick ends up. They have 3 wins on the season. That pick could very well turn into being the number 1 overall pick in the draft, right? So there's still a world in which, that can happen, but the player in Deriq Queen is looking really damn good. And you're seeing these dominant performances from Deriq Queen and what he's been able to do. He's averaging 13 points on the year on 49% shooting, 6 rebounds, 4 assists per game, 1 steal as well, and almost a block per game. Deriq Queen is having himself a year. And this is a player that undoubtedly is showing that he has all the potential to be good in the world, right? And that's good for the Pelicans. This is a team that, has lacked direction. Many Pelicans fans question if Joe Dumars knows what the hell he's doing down there, and that's a fair question as well. But Deriq Queen, it looks like he's going to be a really good player, and you got to give him credit for this. A triple-double. Shout out to Deriq Queen. I wanted to spend some time giving that, and we should see what's going to happen with Deriq Queen and where he's going to fit in at. And, shout out to the Pelicans for getting themselves a good player, about being aggressive, about going out there and getting that player and not worrying about, because it could have been easy to say, we didn't want to give an unprotected pick, or they could have missed out on the trade trying to throw some protections on it. They went out and got a guy that they believe in. Now, like I said, there's a world in which that guy still turns out to be the player that they want to be, but they still lose the trade. That is still a very possible thing. But overall, what's in their control as far as getting a player in here, making a trade for a player that can help your franchise, it's working out for them in that sense. And Deriq Queen is having himself an absolute season for this Pelicans team, and we'll see how that continues to develop. But that is my time for today, guys. I appreciate you guys so much, man. This season is going to be crazy, and I think this trade season is going to be wild as well. AD could be traded. Giannis could be traded. Trae Young could be traded, right? And that's just the bigger names. A lot of smaller names that could actually help teams quite considerably on their playoff push could be moved as well. But make sure you guys hit a like on the video as well. Drop your predictions on everything down below as well. I'd love to hear from you guys. You can follow us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything basketball related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, man, I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video, probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.